This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're breaking down the blasters of Star Wars, the original trilogy.
So we are now well into our old friend, the E-11 blaster. All over the franchise, of course, all over the first movie, and we're very fortunate to have a real one.
I feel like my memory has been altered over time. Like I've been bullied into thinking that Han didn't shoot first, but he did. It's a sanitization of the Han Solo character. It's like, no, the guy who ends up being a good guy could never have shot first. Like, no, he did. He was a horrible smuggler, and that was like, we loved him anyway.
We dive even deeper into the bizarre blasters of Star Wars over in our Patreon exclusive extended edition. Link in the description below if you want to check that out. But without further ado, over to Jonathan it is.
And our first gun is not actually a gun at all. These are all rubber casts, and although later on they end up being actually built on sterlings or sterling-ish items, at this point they are basically pistol versions of the back end of a sterling with the front end of this. This is one of several prototype BSA submachine guns, rivals to the Patchett, became the Sterling. And although it's like a Bakelite type resin, polymer, not shiny chrome or anything, you can see it's the same shape. So they were inspired at BAPT, who were the armourers for the Star Wars movies, the original trilogy. They were inspired by this front bit, but that is a cut and shut Sterling submachine gun, basically, but made of rubber. Like, it's an impossible design. They've made it much smaller. There's no magazine housing hanging off the side. They do add that back on later, where they've kind of forgotten / don't care anymore that it's not meant to be a carbine. It's meant to be a pistol. But
let me give you a little EXP behind the scenes. This is Adam. We've worked together for years, and he's edited around half the videos on this channel. And he's done so from this busted, crusty, broken ass chair. We all spend a lot of hours at our desks to create content for this channel, so we have to make sure that we're equipped with a chair that's supportive and comfortable. And you know, one that isn't literally falling apart, Adam. But FlexiSpot's C7 Morpher is ticking all those boxes. It features a 3D adjustable headrest with 135 degrees of recline, FlexiLean Tech upper back support that is precision engineered to gently wrap your upper back while adjusting to your sitting style, ensuring your shoulders remain relaxed while supporting your upper back all day. There's air lumbar support that also allows you to adjust both the pressure and angle to your preferred comfort, fully customizable seat depth, a super hybrid mesh addressed cushion that offers 30% more breathability and a 20% reduction in hip pressure, full range of motion for reclining, and 5D armrests that adjust with you as you recline. How many dimensions did your old chair have, Adam? Well, Adam is pleased as punch with his new C7 Morpher chair, and if you want to check out the chair for yourself, then you can do so by using the links in the description or pinned comment below. And you can do so risk-free, as FlexiSpot has both a 30-day return policy and a 10-year warranty. FlexiSpot are also running a special Mother's Day promotion. Use code C750 to get $50 off the C7 Morpher chair. Thank you FlexiSpot for sponsoring this episode, and now we'll get back into the video.
oh, boo! Special edition, boo!
It wasn't my first choice to record footage from the special edition, but it was the one that provided the cleanest footage.
Boo! However, so we are now well into our old friend, the E-11 blaster. All over the franchise, of course, all over the first movie, and we're very fortunate to have a real one, albeit completely rebuilt since its 1977 days. BAPT only had so many Sterlings in inventory, and they, as far as we know, they all went out for Star Wars. Basically, all the Star Wars stuff has had to be restored extensively because it was stripped back down after filming, much like a lot of other movie guns from BAPT. So, Sherman tank scope, sighting scope on the top there. That's a real one. And that's mounted to just a steel strip that's attached at the rear sight and then looped into the cooling vent at the front. We've got these draw runners, which are originally, I believe, were from B&Q, and a cut-down magazine. They still had a number of those. Yeah, this one's welded in due to the nature of the deactivation that they did on this. They wanted it to be beyond reproach if it had to get sent off somewhere without any kind of certification. That's why it has this solid steel bolt welded into it as well. Those of you who know the Sterling know it doesn't quite look right. It kind of looks right for a prop, but not for if it was a functioning submachine gun. And the cocking handle is welded in place as well, unfortunately. But we are very proud of this. This normally lives on display with its Rebel mate in our make-believe display here at Leeds, Royal Armouries. And you can, of course, come and see it on display. We've pulled it off display to show you here, and it's felt appropriate to do that.
I still love that all these years later, there's still that shot of the stormtrooper walking through the door and bonking his head.
Like, I had to be told about that and then watch it multiple times before spotting it. There's question my attention to detail there. So if you pay close attention here, at various points, you'll see, like, very slightly the gun's moving in the actor's hands as the bolt slams forward, fires a blank. Sometimes you'll see muzzle flash as well. Sometimes they're just animating blaster bolts in when there's nothing actually firing, because these cut down mags were only 5 rounds. And so armourers were running in and out of shot with fresh magazines. And it doesn't take many shots to get through 5. The full-size Sterling mags are 34 rounds. These are only 5. So there are plenty of shots where the blaster bolts are just animated in regardless. But there's enough of that physicality, I don't know why I'm gesturing, use the real thing, of the real gun moving and ejecting cases, which of course it shouldn't be, really. But I dare say our brain subconsciously is aware that there's something happening on screen. Real guns, you see there, that's a great shot there of real muzzle flash and then the blaster bolt kind of emanating from it. They just look so good. For 77 especially.
Ironic that the Rebel weaponry and the Empire weaponry are both made by the same company. Cheeky of BlasTech to do.
Yeah, I guess if we're looking at real-world insurgencies, you typically are going to use... Well, we see our heroes, of course, use this very weapon against their former owners. That's kind of typical in that kind of unequal conflict. But yeah, you might be buying your weapons from the same source. It's happened plenty of times, even though they are different models. Of course, we're looking here at, it's never quite clear. Some of this is revealed later or made up later. But how long has the war been going on? To what extent are we seeing former Empire stuff that's Rebel? Or are there like 2 totally separate factions in the galaxy? And then it's decided that they look similar because they are from the same company. I don't think any thought was given to that in 77 at all. Likewise, the names. Just about all of the names of these things are essentially fanon that has been enshrined as canon. We're so used to not looking through the scope on Stormtrooper blasters, and I refuse to unfold the stock. Last time I did that, they took photos of it with the stock unfolded, and it just looks wrong. And the sequel trilogy, Rogue One and the sequel trilogy have established that this is not a stock. This is either a fold down foregrip with a pop-out light on it, that's certainly with the F11D anyway, or it's somehow just how the gun works, it's part of its structure. We never see it unfolded. In fact, in the sequel trilogy, they keep this equivalent in place, directly referencing this gun, this exact gun, and then they stick like an M4 buffer tube stock on the back of it. Yeah, but the scope, you may just, probably not actually, yeah, probably not with this camera. But trust me when I say that they have bothered to put this on in a way that you can look through and use the crosshair. But Stormtroopers don't aim. Hell, even the Rebels don't aim. They just somehow hit. Now this is an interesting one. I didn't know what the hell it was until well into my armories career, if I remember rightly. Yeah, in fact, I guess shout out to Roger Christian, the production designer for Star Wars, who has started doing, there are several interviews with him on his own YouTube channel now of his experience working with the Star Wars movies. And he talks about visiting Bapti and choosing suitable I think it's just World War II firearms. They are, a lot of them are World War II, but it's, you know, they're around that. The E-11 / DH-17 comes from the Patchett, which is 1944, not in service till the 50s. But that whole story of the sort of lived-in universe that they wanted real guns to dress them, and also for the budget, quite frankly, budgetary reasons. It was going to be easier to hire real guns and have them modified for the production. So the one we're looking at the moment, the Margolin target pistol. So this is one of ours. We have several. I've gone with this one. This is different. This is a target grip rest to support your hand for an ultra accurate shot. It's a 2.2 target pistol. We have several without it, but this is looking nice and black and shiny like Leia's does in the movie. And I think, if anything, that makes it look more Star Wars. So I'm showing you that one. And also, we have a couple with compensators on them that make them look like some variant. In fact, you can see they have used the, or at least on the one I'm looking at, which I think is it's a resin replica actually, but you can see that the compensator's intact on the end. Yeah, interestingly, it looks like this compensator with a slot in it, help with the very low recoil of this thing, has been moved down. They've put a barrel extension on there, but kept that on there. And then they've put the ribbing in between. So I had never noticed that before, actually. This is correct for Star Wars, and they've moved it down the barrel somehow, and then given it the ribbed bit to make this thing look like a ray gun. But that's what it is, really. Fairly conventional looking pistol. And yeah, I'd say this looks pretty Star Wars as is, even without the additional bits. And I can't recall if I've ever known what those ribbed bits are from. Most of the greeblies on the Star Wars guns are found objects or repurposed bits of stuff that Baptiste had to hand that they chopped up and stuck on things. If anyone does know what the sort of barrel extension on this thing actually is, let us know. It does have, out of interest, this is Russian, by the way, Russian target pistol. So it has a sort of half slide arrangement going on that you don't see in the movie. So, as I'm sure a lot of you know, this is just a short magazine Lee Enfield with the butt cut down to just a pistol grip and the barrel cut down, and a #1 Mark 1 cup discharger, grenade launcher, stuck back on the stub of the barrel. I think the Jawas would have struggled with the full-length SMLE with the blaster muzzle, as it effectively is, on the end. And yes, #1 Mark 1, the 2.5-inch grenade discharger. Now, I don't know what it does on the blaster version, but on the real version, you unscrew this and you slide this open or shut a certain amount, quarter, half, 3/4, closed, and that dictates the range of the grenade. And you can see that slot in that photo there. And you can see the magazine of the SMLE, you can see the bolt action, of course, which isn't, you know, they're not bolt actioning this thing. That's just kind of, they haven't bothered to cut the bolt off. Probably didn't want to cut the bolt off because they might have been using the cut down SMLEs. It's possible they even pulled the barrels from the actions and then put the barrels back in the actions.
Yeah, Jawa's trying to do a mad minute. That would have been a sight to see.
But it effectively reads as a sort of pistol blunderbuss. This, I did look into getting one over for this.
People say that they're inspired by Ottoman muskets, or those types of weapons.
Yeah, they're not Ottoman. This is a North African pattern of musket. So I had a look at our own catalogue and collection to see what it was. Most sources online will say that this is Ottoman. It's not. It's Moroccan or North African. And we have maybe 3 of these. I had to consult with my colleagues in the Asian and African department, or team, I should say, because up to the modern mass manufacture period, those guys look after firearms from basically the East and Africa. And it's actually a Mukhala, Mukhala is the sort of English spelling of that name. And they're very North African. They're nothing to do with the Ottoman Empire, really. And what they seem to have done to this one, and I don't think I was able to see one of the, I don't think they'd already gone from Baptiste by the time I first went there. They have taken off the flintlocks, or at least the cocks of the flintlock lock, and then they've put some sort of boxy thing cover over that bit, and they instantly look like some sort of different weapon just by removing the visible old school piratical looking flintlock bit. And they have that distinctive sort of fishtailing looking butt, very long barrel. So the reason I don't have one in front of me is that the one in store is not in the best condition and really needs some conservation before we do anything with that. And then we have two beautiful ones in our Asian and African gallery here in Leeds that you're welcome to come and see if you're able to get to us. If not, you can see them on our online collection in photographic form, really nicely decorated. And I thought, A, I don't like to take things off too many things off display and deprive visitors of them until they go back. And B, they're both far too nice to be Tusken Raider guns. Or in fact, Luke's, because this is the interesting thing. We think of them as being, or I do, as being for the Sand People, but Luke's got one. So it's like, and I think this is meant to evoke the Afghan Jezail of the 19th century in particular, but other kind of indigenous long muskets and rifles that are used against imperial forces, I think is the idea there. And Luke has one of his own because he's from that planet too.
Do you think I had a choice?
Well, that's actually a really good close-up on what we now think of as Han Solo's blaster. But of course, Luke carries one.
Well, we'll get to that. It's a C96, but apparently same but different.
Different configuration, yes. So this is a wartime commercial, as we call them, variant of the C96. Small ring hammer, this pattern of milling on the frame. This one is exceptionally nicely made. One of the earlier ones, so it's made to a higher standard, finished to a higher standard, and this one's in very nice condition. Now, people have gone over this thing with a fine-tooth comb, possibly more than any others. The various greeblies and items that were fitted are itemized on Chris Trevis's website, Parts of Star Wars. The first place I saw this. There's some information on IMFDB as well. Quite a few modifications made. Most importantly, so this was a prop originally set up for a different movie, Frank Sinatra movie, and they created a custom bull barrel, big thick barrel, which they adapted, if I remember correctly, for the blaster, but they're attaching an MG15 muzzle booster onto the end, which gives it that iconic silhouette. Because without that, the broom handle is famous enough that people might veer toward calling it a C96 or a broom handle. But as soon as you've had that booster on the barrel, you're thinking it's a laser gun, blaster gun, plasma shooting. I know. So the major change that was made, because a lot of the stuff is sort of stuck on these guns, but you had to permanently modify the frame to fit that scope mount that we see in that close-up initially. Like these days, we'd probably do it with rare earth magnets or something, or make a whole prop build and work off that. But at the time, there were enough of these things around that they just drilled holes in the frame, which makes people who are wanting a firing replica, because you can still do either fire blank or fire live rounds, although your greeblies might start to fly off. People have tended to replicate them on real guns and drill holes in the frames, which arguably isn't great. But the major change that was made was, and this was from one of Baptiste's prime movies, I believe. I think there's some controversy over it, but a Frank Sinatra movie called The Naked Runner. It was like a takedown sniper C96 with a buttstock and an extended barrel and a scope with a mount. At the very least, they took some inspiration from that and used a similar, what they tend to call a bull barrel, so like a heavy target barrel, which I believe they created originally to fit a suppressor to, but in this case, they used it to sort of bulk the gun up for attaching a muzzle booster from a machine gun, which is an MG81 muzzle booster. But the silhouette of the gun is still recognizable, despite the sort of implied cooling fins attached to the front here, the scope mounts notably.
Yes, I bet you have.
I feel like my memory has been altered over time. Like I've been bullied into thinking that Han didn't shoot first, but he did. And
he absolutely did.
It's a sanitization of the Han Solo character. It's like, no, the guy who ends up being a good guy could never have shot first. Like, no, he did. He was a horrible smuggler, and that was like, we loved him anyway.
Yes, I bet you have.
You know, the fact that he's willing to kill people for his own ends is a critical part of the character, and I absolutely hated the change they made. They didn't even make it very well. The way they have him like dodge the shot made me physically sick. And then they kind of fudged it again, having gone for he's completely morally in the right. Greedo shoots first. Like, why would he shoot first anyway? He's talking about bringing him in. Why would he suddenly shoot him? And then there's a weird third version.
Yeah, there's one where they almost shoot at the exact same time.
That's it. They took on board the criticism and went, well, let's try and make it more kind of desperate. And he ends up being morally in the right, but maybe he was prepared to shoot first because they were both it turned it into a quick draw competition, basically. You know, like a Wild West movie cliche, which is better, but it's not what was intended. He draws it from the holster, doing as little movement as possible so he doesn't get seen, distracting with the other hand, and shoots him in either the lower abdomen or the junk under the table, and he cooks him. As a kid, that was fairly kind of, whoa, that and the burning corpses of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru smoking in the desert, looking very, yeah, those two scenes, and the arm cutting off, pretty dark, maybe not Disney. Appropriately, given the threat they're facing, we've got our old friend, the emotional support Sturmgewehr there, heavily disguised. And that basic blaster configuration comes in two very different flavors, which I'm guessing we're going to see both of. But I couldn't help myself. It's pretty well disguised, really, unless you're quite familiar with the stamped receiver of the MP44, which this one is, or STG-44. They've kind of got rid of the more obvious bits or hidden them, and we don't have the great big magazine sticking off the bottom. It's funny how many Star Wars guns are mainly created by either shortening or removing the magazine. Most moviegoers would go, and I think yet again, harping on the Andor Space AK, they tried to do the same by shortening the mag on that, but it was just still a bit too long and banana-like, and it makes your brain think AK. This thing really doesn't read as a World War II German assault rifle. Wonderful stop-motion AT-ATs there, or AT-ATs as we called them when we were kids. Yeah, as you can see, you've got basically the whole receiver of the MP44 there, and no doubt, again, intended to be convertible back to its proper configuration for a war movie Baptiste might be doing down the road. They've just unpinned and removed the stock, replaced it with something else, dressed up the front, removed the mag. Well, a bit more to it than that, but all about breaking up the silhouette so it looks less conventional.
I mean, this would have been the first time a lot of moviegoers would have seen this weapon. The weapon had been in movies previously, but like very small movies, or like movies coming out of the USSR, or even German movies. This is the first big picture that this gun appeared in.
That's the thing. People nowadays, youth of today, with the various games that heavily featured the Sturmgewehr, and then you've got movies like Fury where it's much more prominent. Growing up, we really weren't aware of the Sturmgewehr as a Nazi gun or World War II German weapon, and that kind of reflects that it didn't play a huge part in the war. Veterans didn't really talk about it that much. You didn't see it that much in books. It wasn't used in the war movies. They'd go for MP40s if they wanted something automatic or a machine gun. I doubt many moviegoers spotted it in Star Wars.
So in The Empire Strikes Back, it's the BlasTech A295, the STG-44. And this was, again, something I didn't realize when I first watched the movie, but then in Return of the Jedi, it's not only a different weapon, it's the A280, it's also based on AR-15s.
Yes. Now, as far as I know, all of those designations and this whole idea is completely retrospective. As far as I know, they're just going for something that looks like this basic configuration of Rebel blaster rifle, and they didn't have enough Sturmgewehrs, so they've built some on AR-15s. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. The silhouettes are very close. Yes, when you start looking at them in these pictures, they look completely different. But you can see they've done the same. They've got the shortened mag, the fore end, a similar buttstock, admittedly not massively It's not identical by any means. It's possible they intended that they were different variants, but I sort of doubt that. And certainly the designations, those have been created later on. I also believe, if you look at the way they have mocked up that AR-based version, they are referencing that Sturmgewehr with the way the barrel and the fake gas tube have been added in, the shape of the front sight without the sight protector on there. You know, they've not kept any AR bits of the front end. So that's my theory. I won't stick to it though. If someone has any other evidence, let me know. And also the sort of major optic assembly being mounted forward rather than on the top of the receiver. I think they've gone with what they had available, which I believe was more model gun company die-cast M16s. Is what these were built on, I believe, with some wooden bits stuck to them.
How long have you had these, Troy?
About 3 or 4 seasons?
Yeah, these poor extras having to carry these suckers around for hours on end in the desert. MG34. So I remember for a while being confused when we couldn't readily just fire up a movie and check. Do stormtroopers have MG42s or 34s? And then I kind of realised later on, probably playing Battlefront, that actually, of course, both are in the franchise. And in real life, the 42 replaces the 34. But yeah, that's the barrel of an MG15 there. See, much skinnier, and they leave the cooling holes unmodified or uncovered up. I guess because the whole gun looks weirder. There are two visible there. That's a good shot of the saddle mag. No buttstock on the 15s. And they're much skinnier. I guess they only had so many of each type of gun, because kind of doesn't make too much sense that they have multiple different heavy blasters in the same unit. But yeah, they look big, black and scary and gun-like, and that's kind of what they needed. I think they've all got bipods fitted when you see them as well. So like this, set up like this, and all they've done really is not put a belt on them, because they fire plasma, or whatever they thought it was in 1977. And there's another, dare I say, lower effort Star Wars gun. I won't say low effort, but now it's not as simple as leaving off the magazine, but it does, yeah, and you need heavy lifting with these, let me tell you. They've put some ribbing, like some corrugated piping or something around the barrel jacket to make it look less Lewis gunny. And they've obviously taken off the mag. We have one there with some drill rounds in it. And actually it's cut away, because this whole gun is cut away. So it'd be fun to see one done up like a cutaway blaster. But this is, of course, a real gun. So you see the big blocky aluminium heat sink radiator that is cut away here, as well as the outer jacket. And this thing sucks cold air in. The muzzle blast sucks cold air in the back by pulling its hot air out the front, and you get a convection cooling essentially. And we have the gas tube cut away in here as well. It almost still looks quite blastery in its cutaway form, because it's so weird.
Or maybe the heat was getting to one of these stormtroopers, because this is something I definitely didn't notice while watching the film. But what could you notice about the stormtrooper on the left and his blaster?
Well, he's got an MG34 upside down.
Even, I was like, oh, maybe, it's just making it look sci-fi. But the grip is pointing to his armpit.
I don't know if he just thinks, well, what does it matter? I'm just carrying it. I'm not using it. But this is interesting. That guy is probably a civvy. The guy carrying the Lewis gun is cradling it and carrying it really easily, like maybe he's ex-forces. That's a very British Army way to carry it's almost like a slope arm, or not slope arms, but he looks very natural and casual with that quite heavy gun. Unless it is, of course, a resin stunt one, which is possible.
He must have been told to adjust his hold, because in the next scene you can just see on the right, the bipod is now...
Oh, that's funny. You're really giving this guy a hard time. That's somebody's dad.
There will be a substantial reward for the one who finds the Millennium Falcon.
I did want to include the entire cadre of bounty hunters, but they appear for like 7 frames, some of them. Can't remember this dude's name though, but I definitely didn't notice this rifle.
No, me either. I'm not even sure what that is. That looks like a Mosin. No. Oh, I don't know.
It might be something they've built scratch. That big magazine is sort of like Mosin or the Enfield maybe. And then there's a small magazine in front of it that almost looks
like it.
Inspired by the Dalal Carbine.
Yeah, that's a scratch build. And interestingly, I had that figure.
Wait, hang
Action
on.
figure.
I can show something. I will preface that this is my housemate's, not mine. But Forlom here, and he does indeed
Yes.
come with his strange little rifle.
I had the original version.
Yeah, this is a recreation of the original action figure.
I think I did have all the bounty hunters at one point, and I do remember that weird brackety thing hanging off the bottom of the gun. I always remember thinking that's weird, but I didn't pay much attention to the gun in the movie because you barely see it. A lot of these Star Wars guns, I've spent more time looking at the little plastic versions than the real ones on screen. Yeah, so the Boba Fett blaster. Here is the base gun. Webley and Scott flare pistol. We have a video on this one actually. Press the latch, break it open, stick your flare in there, close it up. Double action trigger, based on the Webley revolver. And the dressed up, tricked out version of this, the original, but again with a load of stuff put back on it, sold quite recently. I didn't actually see what the final price was, but it was the gun, screen matched. So it will have been a lot of money.
See, I always associate his gun with the cool ribs on the barrel, but they didn't add those until the third movie.
By the time of Jedi, it's much better disguised. You can see the shape of the frame of the barrel assembly at the back there. And of course, he gets absolutely wrecked.
The first time it's fired on screen, immediately chopped in half.
And the scope gets chopped in half at the same. It's a good effect, it's one of a number of good lightsaber slice dice moments that we see. And he's desperately trying to use his repertoire of weapons, and it doesn't go well.
He's meant to be Boba Fett is one of the coolest characters. He's meant to be this amazing bounty hunter. He jetpacks towards the guy with the lightsaber. That's like Sun Tzu. I am not, but that is not top-notch military strategy.
Well, there's his stormtrooper heritage coming in. He's just not that effective.
Thank you all for watching. Let us know what you thought of the episode and what other Star Wars guns, armor, tanks, vehicles, and everything in between you would like to see us cover on the show. As always, a massive shout out to all of our wonderful supporters over on the EXP Patreon for supporting us and for allowing us to make cool content like this. Links to support Jonathan and the Royal Armouries will also be in the description down below, so make sure you check those out. But until next episode, I want to say thank you once more for watching, and we will see you very soon.
Where the hell have you been? Where the hell have you been? All right, don't lose your temper.